Hey everyone, welcome back to my follow-up interview with Ben Levy and Zach Rovang of Strongbox Games. And we're here to celebrate their funding of Mantle of the Keeper. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back.
Yeah, doing great. It's been a fun month or so, and we're glad to be back and talking with you about it.
Yeah, I love these success stories and circling back with folks who successfully fund and it's just it's a good positive vibe, and I just love seeing you guys succeed and everyone else succeeding. So let's jump into it. I'd love to kind of hear how you guys are feeling. Just what is your overall feeling now that the campaign is over and you've funded and you like have this game that's actually going to be, put out into the world?
Go ahead, Zach.
So from the Kickstarter, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure so many people have said this, but the Kickstarter was pretty exhausting. It was nonstop. I had become addicted to pulling up the app on my phone and saying, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
how we doing? How we doing this last hour? How we doing this last
Yeah.
5 seconds?"
Wow.
So it's a nice breath of fresh air to say, "Oh, we did it. It's funded. Now the work begins." and
Mhm.
but it's been really surreal just to have how much support we had from friends and family as well as our gaming community. And it's been a really fun month. It's been a stressful past month, and Ben and I are both just so excited and blessed to be where we're at now. We get to move forward and make this thing happen.
Yeah, I guess in summation, I would agree and just say we're humbled that
Hmm.
enough people raised their hands and in support and said that we want to help with this, and we've had so many people reach out and say like, "Hey, I was following the whole time," or these are people from high school that Zach and I haven't talked
Hmm.
to in years,
Oh,
or
nice.
Yeah.
just like having that kind of support, just every day from people, but also seeing that we were able to cross the finish line well. That was really relieving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, talk about, when during the campaign you funded, and then the kind of the time between when you started and when that happened, what you did, what you were feeling, what your impressions of how you were doing up to that point.
Sure. So we funded right around day 15. We had a 26 days campaign, Zach? Something like that.
26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
26. So a little
Okay.
bit more than halfway through. Now, thanks to some wise advice, we had prepared kind of mentally and just business wise for a couple scenarios of how we would do.
Hmm.
And our kind of ideal track was to fund first 48, and we did not end up doing that, but we kind of were able to identify some possible reasons for that. But we did end up funding on day 15. So you asked what did we do to kind of push through that. Well, some things that we had planned were some slightly delayed release of reviews or reactions. We had a couple of reviewers kind of hold off a little bit, so it kind of
Nice.
set out the content. And we also try to push as much organic as we could. But I think the key with the organic part that we were trying to be real cognizant of is that we didn't want to be spammy. We wanted like what kind of content could we share that people would be interested in, but would also be like, hey, don't forget we're still alive. And
Right.
we actually had a pretty good use of that, I think, because we got to show some behind the scenes and all that, but also every time we would do a post, we would see the backers increase. So people were remembering what was going
Mm.
on, and so that was a good correlation that we were able to make.
And when you say a post, is that like an update in on Kickstarter? Yeah.
No, so
Oh,
I'm just talking about specifically social media.
oh, social
So
media. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, and because there would be people that had planned on backing or just forgot maybe, and so our thing on
Yeah.
social media gave them a little reminder.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's good to keep in mind, is that, when you launch, you're looking for that big push at the beginning,
Hmm.
but there's still probably lots of people who have been following and who know about it that, either they're busy or they just forgot or whatever.
Right.
And and you got to keep the word going, and that happens to
Mhm.
me all the time, right? I'm following a Kickstarter that I'm super interested in, but for whatever reason I get busy, they launch, and I totally miss it, and then all of a sudden I see them pop up on social media or something, and that reminds me. And I think that's super important to remember that it feels like it's kind of a nonstop. You just have to keep getting the word out and keep pushing the whole time without, like you said, being spammy. So I'm curious
Yeah.
how you balance that and where the line is for you, where you could like cross over into being spammy.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, before we were going into this, Ben and I planned to be pretty active on social media throughout the whole campaign. And it was actually my wife Morgan had brought up, "Hey guys, I was at work today. I had some spare time, and I made this content schedule where she scheduled out every single day a topic every day." And that was really what Ben had said. It was really organic, of like a behind the scenes. So basically, what we did, and how we are throughout any of our posts on any social media, whether it be in Facebook groups, board game Facebook groups, our own Facebook group, is like, how are we going to add value to our community or to this community? And so the people who were following along, who've liked our page on social media, like our Strongbox Games page, or are a member of our Mantle the Keeper board game community, is like they're there for a reason. And so like what we want to do is bring them and become a part of the community. Like, hey, this is what's going on. Here's how you can help. Because a lot of the
Mm.
people on our communities have already backed the game and like, oh well, I backed, I've done my part.
Right.
And we ran some giveaways, and so I think that it's a very fine line, because it's also subjective. Is that some people are going to take it that we're posting every day as being spam, and we
Right.
had that on our email list. We had some unsubscribes, several unsubscribes, just because we were sending out more emails than once a month. I think throughout the whole campaign we had sent out maybe 5 emails through of the 26 days, and for some people that's too
Mm.
much.
Yeah.
So it is a very fine line, and what it is of like, they've people who follow us have some sort of interest. How can we further engage that interest, and then maybe
Mhm.
provide some insight of to why, you know, we're just a couple of normal dudes who are trying to bring a board game to life. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that kind of answer it, Ben? Would you have any other thoughts?
Well, yeah, it does, and I think so. First off, Morgan's ex-wife did a great job of these outlines of kind of
Mm-hmm.
topics of what she thought people would find interesting, and it generally tended to mesh quite well. I think
Mm-hmm.
other things that we did was kind of take cues from. We would have some comments or some comments on a Facebook Live we would do about, hey, like, do these characters have specific backstories and a lore somewhere? Did you guys document this?
Oh
Or
yeah.
Mm.
did you have a reason for naming this play style this way? And so like we would be like, oh, that'd be a great topic for a post. And so
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
yeah, we would just be like that, and then they'd usually follow up and be like, this is awesome. So that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool opportunity you have with a kind of a unique fantasy world that hasn't been, done by anyone else before. Is you can explore all these different parts of it and all these different
Hmm.
backstories and stuff like that. And it's cool that
Yeah.
the backers were asking you for that stuff, and then you were able to
Yeah.
to do it for them.
Absolutely.
I think this content schedule is really smart. I like the idea of, even before you launch, that you have kind of the whole journey of the campaign mapped out, as far as, what you're going to post, what you're going to do, and having that done ahead of time, so that when the campaign is happening, you're going to be frazzled, and you're going to be running around, and you're going to have all this stuff happening, and you might forget to do certain things, and to have that, just, oh, this is what we need to do this day, this is what we need to
Hmm.
do this day. I can see that helping quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So was there anything else besides the social media stuff that you had scheduled, or that you kind of had mapped out and planned out beforehand?
The giveaways that Zach mentioned, so we had two strategically planned. That the first one was for a deluxe copy of the game when it funded, which Chuck, which Chuck, he won that. But what we
Mm.
planned for that was to help boost the pre-launch numbers, and so that was planned to end like right before launch. And
Mhm.
then we did one a week into launch that was for a signed prototype copy and two pieces of signed art that was framed. And the reason we did it that way is to build interest for the campaign, but then the people who are most likely going to enter the giveaway, once the campaign was live, had probably already backed, and most of them had. And so this was a way, like Zach said, people were saying, I've backed financially, what else can I do? This
Right.
was extending an olive branch to incentivize that, say, share it,
Mm-hmm.
and you can be entered to win. And we had people do that. So
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What surprised you about the campaign? What was something that maybe worked better than you thought it would, or didn't work as well as you thought it would?
go ahead, Zach.
Sure. So I think the biggest thing that surprised me is that Ben and I have had a lot of friends and family the last 2 years say, "Oh, this is so cool! You guys are doing this," and everything we've heard in the past of don't rely on grandma to show up, and but my goodness, our friends and family were so supportive of this whole thing, and that was a
Grandma
huge.
showed up.
Grandma showed up, and that was something that we were very surprised with. Is like how I think I looked at our numbers the other day. We had 90. What was it? Hold on, I got it right here. I think it's 98 new backers. So we had almost
First
100
times.
people, first time backers. So we had
Hmm.
almost 100 people from our friends and
Ah,
family show up to Kickstarter, and that was
yeah.
That was very, very humbling, and it was just we're very thankful for their support.
Yeah.
And some of those are gamers that are used to board games, but maybe haven't dabbled in the Kickstarter realm. But others are, a lot of those are newer gamers that or maybe are going to get into games because of Mantle the Keeper. So it's very
Yeah.
cool, very, very nice.
And in a way, that is also kind of what leads to the other thing that surprised me. There were several things that surprised me. I think there's only so much you can prepare for
Hmm.
and hear from other people, but if you press that launch button, everything changes. It's
Mm-hmm.
so
Right.
in good and different ways. But I think one thing that we want to really do with this project is, you know, we did not make, hundreds of thousands of dollars like some campaigns, but we made well over our funding goal to produce this game and produce it well. We unlocked some awesome stretch goals, and we have an attainable amount of backers. What Zach and I's mission to do with this campaign is to really establish credibility with
Mm-hmm.
Strongbox games.
Hmm.
So we have gotten this amount of funding from backers. We want to steward that well, follow our production plan, use credible, previously used manufacturers that people know, as well as fulfillment partners, so that
Mm-hmm.
the game can get to their doorstep, like better than what we promised.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
when we do that, I think we'll have established this credibility to where when future projects come, maybe they will be bigger hits, and maybe it's less, hey, friends and family showed up, which some of them genuinely wanted the game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but on the end of the day, we want to build that so it helps us, with future fans that don't know us and don't want to
Exactly.
have to feel like they need to support this project just because you're related or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So kind of knock it out of the park for these folks who backed you and give
Mhm.
them a great experience. And yeah, word of mouth travels fast in this small board gaming world that we're a part of. And,
Right.
if I can't tell you the number of times I've seen people comment when they see a new Kickstarter saying, "Oh yeah, this company hasn't fulfilled their last one yet," or they
Right.
were 2 years late, or the quality wasn't as good as I thought it would be, or this or that, and that really it's hard to shake that kind of reputation
Yeah.
once you get
Yeah.
it. So it's good you're focusing on that.
Mm-hmm.
How about like paid advertising and that kind of thing? Did you do much of that, and how did that work out for you?
Yeah, we did. So we did pre-marketing advertising, and it's actually kind of odd how we did that because previously we had a different launch date set that was actually a few months earlier, and so we had done a month leading up to it, and then the team just decided like, hey, we need to address a few things, which I'm glad we did. So we kind of put a pause on that, but we had a month of expenses for advertising and an agency helping us. After that, we also did 3 months leading up to launch of the date we actually launched. And so
Nice.
that was primarily Facebook and Instagram. And we had an agency that helped us with that. And that was a very rich learning experience
Mm.
because what we were able to do is figure out kind of the ins and outs of what makes a good ad, what to stay away from, and also things that Zach and I were surprised about, which is, part of the appeal to this game is it has some tropes that it is familiar, right? So you have a wizard, or you have an elf with a bow. Like, you have these things that are familiar, but with a twist. That's kind of what also became a challenge for advertising, because fantasy is popular, and especially fantasy in board games is popular. So in order to get our ads in front of the right people who'd actually convert, ended up being competitive. And so that's something that we ran into. But on top of that, we also did some paid previews and stuff like that, but it was mostly marketing paid through Facebook ads.
Interesting. So, I'm curious about like the any like reviews and previews and I don't know if you had any playthroughs done or anything like that. The paying content creators to do stuff for you. Do you think that was money well invested, and what kind of results did you get from that?
I do. I think that it's really hard to tell specific value unless you like had a referral code for every single thing out there, which is possible to an extent. But I think at the very least, like, the quality of those videos blew our expectations. Every single reviewer we sent it to, free or paid, did a fantastic job. Thankfully, it clicked with all of them. We had, I think, well over 10 creators that contributed to that, whether it was review, playthrough, or whatever, and it clicked with all of them, which was great. But for me, what I think was important about it was multi-platform exposure, as in if you saw it on Instagram and you saw it on Facebook through an ad and you also saw it on a review, it's those clicks that keep you engaged. But Zach, what's your take on our experience there?
Yeah, I think that and this is something that we learned from this Kickstarter, of, like Ben mentioned, referral codes. This is something that because I kind of ran the referral code part of things, and I could have done a much better job as far as tracking everything that we did. And that's something that I would highly encourage you for those who are going to be learning from this podcast, is to utilize the referral codes. And that's something I wasn't really aware of going into this, is that on their next Kickstarter, when we do this, is I definitely want to utilize that more. But like Ben said, it's kind of hard to gauge because we didn't utilize it to its full capacity, these referral codes, which are essentially just where it's a specific code that if someone clicks it, you can track where it came from. So like if I give a referral code to this reviewer, I give a referral code to a different reviewer. And so that way each click, we can tell, okay, these backers came from this, these backers came from this person. And so that was something that I really want to utilize more in the future. But like what Ben said, I definitely agree with having that multi-level just previewer exposure, because we had lots of, like, on TikTok, like I'm not really on TikTok, but my wife is, and so like I use her phone to go through all the TikTok stuff. And for instance, on one of them, on a comment that was, I think, on one of our previewers, on Danny Sandrings, it said, "Hey, I saw this on Gamer or Games Grant Recommends," which is Grant Lyons. She's like, they saw that video on his page too. So that was a cool thing to see, like, okay, it's actually getting in front of people who follow the same people we do. And that was really cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah. I think referral codes and tracking is great. But at the end of the day, even if you're tracking it, it's still, and it doesn't perform, it's like, what do you do, right? You just kind of have to accept it.
And I'm actually it's funny you mentioned that, because I'm kind of extra aware to this now, because I have a friend, Joshua, who has a Kickstarter right now, and he's like, here it is. And it was on Facebook, a link, and I clicked it. And I hate when my phone opens it in a browser that's not logged into my account. I'm like, I don't want to log in. So I just like swipe out of that, go to the app and search it. Well, Kickstarter takes credit for that. Yeah. And so you can't say like the referral link was from a Facebook ad if it doesn't, work that way. So that would be direct search via Kickstarter, whatever they call it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely an imperfect kind of system, right? And there's no exact way to know. And someone could click through on an ad and then see the page and then leave and then come back on Kickstarter and then leave and like come in lots of different directions. And it's hard to know, but yeah, I mean, it never hurts, right, to get that insight into
exactly
where people are coming from and what's working better than others, because hopefully you guys do this again, and then you'll have better idea of where to focus.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, kind of tracking better with the referral codes is something that you would maybe do differently. Anything else that you could think of, when you guys do this again for your next game? What lessons you've learned that you're going to apply to that next Kickstarter?
I think we both have some that we can share. I have I'll just keep it with 2 or 3 for mine. There's lots of lessons. I will start by saying that just going through it, you learn.
Yeah.
First one being, I would have our pre-launch page up much sooner than we did. A lot of people don't know. We didn't know. It's not really talked about a lot that your pre-launch page can be up and approved months and months and months before your Kickstarter launches.
Do they have any kind of requirements or?
Yes. Yeah. And Zach can maybe answer a little bit more of that. But essentially what we provided was Zach made a kind of summation and is like, here's the cover of, a temporary cover that you can see a thumbnail. You can get a feel for the game. You can see that, it's not inappropriate or like kind of going off of their ethics code. And then Zach also provided essentially a breakdown and a bullet point saying, we're going to hit these topics. We're going to provide a space for this, a space for this. And that's all that was needed. Okay. And so we didn't know that. And we were like, we have to have the whole page ready. Because I think what Zach and I were hesitant about is not being able to change anything. Which really the only thing that you can't change after pre-launch is the Kickstarter title, right, Zach?
I think you can even change that. It's just before you launch.
Right.
Yeah.
So
or like you can't change it after you launch, I mean to say.
Right. So really, I think one thing that we will definitely take from this is like, you can grow your pre-launch so much better if you just have anything out there, because all they're going to see is the title, a thumbnail, and follow. Like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do that differently. I think there's some financial decisions that we just made throughout the learning that kind of could add up, and that could have gone towards something else. But Zach and I have discussed, and we're like, hey, those are lessons learned that we can take with us for future projects. Mm-hmm. I think the last one would be just an approach to advertising from a sense of we have an understanding a little bit more of, when we're talking to someone about it, what we're looking for, and not just like, can you tell me what you mean by click-through rate and stuff like that. So I think Jasper, for those of you who haven't had experience with this, Jasper is a good resource on his blog, as well as Roke. He's on a couple of Facebook groups. They are all great at understanding these from a behind the scenes standpoint, because it can be a little daunting. But once you get it, it's smooth sailing as far as how the system works, but you do have to manage it and make sure you're targeting well and that it's performing well and you're not wasting money. So it's a lot of work, but I think we would take a slightly different approach. What about you, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I agree with everything you said. I think that the biggest thing is that pre-launch page, because whenever you set up your project, it's all estimates. So like you're like, my estimated date is January 26th, but you might not launch until March or April. It doesn't matter, as long as you're just giving Kickstarter like, hey, this is what I plan to do. And then you can build all that way after you set it up initially. Because
even after you launch, you can edit it.
Yeah, you can edit like 98% of what you make on there, which was very helpful. And I wish we would have done a little bit more researches beforehand to grow that page, because I know the biggest thing like you want to do just so you can stay in contact with people is you want to capture emails. And that was really what we focused on, which is an amazing thing. But also people like to jump on the bandwagon for Kickstarter pre-launch pages. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, this page, this pre-launch page has 1,300 followers. I'm going to follow it. As opposed to like I think we did ours like 3 or 4 weeks before our Kickstarter, and I think that before we launched we had like 300 or something like that. Whenever we launched, and we ended up having a lot more page follows, where you get, even when the project's live, people can follow it.
Yeah,
that was really interesting. I think we ended up with like 600 or something.
That's something that I mean, I'm sure you'll get back to things you changed, but that's something that was an outlier. Was we had 590-ish page follows, project follows, and so normally people should expect 8 to 10% of your page follows to convert to backers. We had 16%, which was
Oh,
extraordinary.
Yeah.
Ben,
What?
we actually had 20%. I'm looking right now.
Oh,
We
well,
had
there you go.
20% conversion
We had
rate.
20%. So that's double
Cool.
the recommended now or expected. I wouldn't rely on that, but it was
Mhm.
like it was
Possible.
interesting. Yeah.
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 That's
So,
cool.
so
Yeah. Go ahead.
and I was just going to say, and I agree with Ben about what he said about some of the financial decisions, just not knowing how to make a board game, and we just jumped into it and maybe paid for some things really, really early on that that I wouldn't have, like starting again, like for art. I think we just started on art really, really soon,
Yeah.
which doesn't have to do with the Kickstarter, but still a lesson learned from the whole experience.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's so hard to know like when is the right time for any of this stuff. And I think you just kind of have to go through it the first time and be like, okay, maybe I did that too soon. Okay, maybe I waited too long for that. And
Yeah.
then you just kind of get a sense of it. And it probably also depends on the type of game it is and the components and all that stuff. And
Right.
so, yeah, I think that's perfectly normal. Just trying to kind of guess your way through it and see how it goes.
And the nice part of that was we weren't relying on this for livelihood, right? We weren't relying on this for income. This was a passion project that we want to do and develop into a business. You know, we're still going to eat because we have full-time jobs. So
Yeah.
So I'm glad you guys didn't quit your job for this because
no.
from what I hear, it takes a while to
Yes.
get to that point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So, any other kind of big lessons learned or anything you want to cover before we wrap things up?
I think a big lesson for me was the power of fans for this. And I use fans just as a generic term. I'm talking about fans of the game that we've developed. Um, I was overwhelmed in the truest sense by the amount of effort that people did without us even asking. We had, I don't know, I don't really want to name names, but we had some fans that like went above and beyond. They jumped on to like YouTube live of their favorite content creators for board games and like threw our Kickstarter out there, said, "Hey, you should check this out." Like we never asked them to do that. There was a guy who really fell in love with our game from the first playthrough. He downloaded the public TTS, asked us like, "Hey, I noticed this. Do you mind, fixing that so I can play with these people?" And he played with well over 10 people that he told me of, and most of
Wow.
them ended up backing at deluxe. This was all
Cool.
like we were busy working on other stuff. We didn't ask, and just he would call, like text us and be like, "Hey, like I got this guy." I'm like, "Dude, like that's awesome." And so I think really the lesson there is like if you invest in people and like we just really had a fun time with this gentleman and had some good play tests and we like asked for his feedback, we implemented most of it. Just having that connection with people is part of what makes Kickstarter powerful because he not only backed and loves the game and keeps playing the TTS mod right now, but he also produced 10 more backers. And so I think that
Cool.
was a huge lesson for me.
I think that's a testament to the game, right? You got to have a great game in order to get that kind of excitement built up around it. Number one, and number two, it's a testament to this community. I mean,
Yeah.
the board gaming community is just full of such passionate, kind, giving people that as long as you show that compassion back and you're kind and in your interactions, there's people willing to go well out of their way to show you some love and to spread the word. And I'm glad you guys got to experience that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. So what's next for Strongbox Games? You guys have any other, games planned, or do you have any follow-ups to Mantle of the Keeper? What do you see your vision is for the next year or two?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, right now our biggest thing is get this game to people,
Sure.
into backers. I mean, that's our biggest goal right now. Like this past week, just right off the bat, we've been trying to get our backer kit set up and getting all of our shipping and manufacturing planned out. And so that's been quite the undertaking, which that's a big piece of doing any Kickstarter is making sure you have all that lined out to where it goes as absolutely smoothly as possible. But absolutely, to answer your other question, we have lots of things planned. We have some co-op versions that are co-op like kind of expansions for Mantle the Keeper.
Nice.
I was talking to Ben earlier, just before we hopped on this podcast, as I was like, I have an idea, which is actually a spinoff of one of the characters that has nothing to do with fighting, but the
Nice.
spinoff of one of the characters from Mantle the Keeper. We have
Love it.
some card games planned, and a lot of fun stuff in the works that we're very excited about. So yes. So Ben, what do you have on your radar?
Yeah, so like I told you before, first and foremost, we are working closely to see the kind of philosophy of under promise and over deliver. We're trying to do that and do it well with Mantle the Keeper, especially with, there's some looming things happening in the world. So we're trying to navigate those and be as efficient yet precise as possible at this process to get people, what they have pledged for. On top of that, we're also working on relationships with retailer people that we know and either have backed the game or we're waiting to see how it did. So that's Mantle Keeper specifically. We really love this process of designing games, and now we understand the process of what it takes to at least get to the Kickstarter point. We have all these awesome people who are helping us fulfill and manufacture and ship, and so we're actively getting that experience. So I think because Zach and I have such an enjoyment of it, and we have the margin at this time in our lives to delve into this, we foresee ourselves making some of our ideas come to life more and more. But also while listening to people that have played our game and saying like, what is the common threads? What can we pull? I think our main focus right now is going to be the Mantle the Keeper line, but we do have a whole Google Doc full of ideas that are kind of outside that world. It's just a matter of what do we focus on. So
right, yeah, that's the key, right? Focusing on something, because it is easy to get distracted by the next shiny object or whatever, or next cool idea. I am excited to hear that you're going to be exploring the Mantle of the Keeper universe more, and I think it's a rich kind of place to expand and get to know more. It was once like, if I play a game and I love the universe it's a part of, I want to explore that universe some more, and so it's cool to see that you guys are going to be doing that as well. I'm excited to see what comes from that. I'm excited to get my copy of Mantle of the Keeper when it ships. And I'm excited to see what happens in the future and what's in store for you guys. I'm sure it's going to be nothing but greatness, and I can't wait to see where you go. So thank you for your time. Congrats, and let's stay in touch.
Yes,
sounds good.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
Oh, I almost forgot. Where could people go to learn more about Mantle of the Keeper?
Yeah, so I think some of the best places you can go are strongbox.games. That's our website that Zach actively keeps up to date. So whenever we do have that backer kit live, if you missed the Kickstarter and you want to pre-order it or anything to do with that, want to share it with your family, we will announce when that's live and you'll see it on the page. Another great way you can connect with us is on our Facebook group. So we have a page and a group. You can join the Strongbox Games page, but more of the interaction happens at Mantle the Keeper board game, and that's the group. That's where we pitch ideas. We kind of ask people their opinions. We do some behind the scenes stuff. So if you want to know any more about the universe or kind of what's coming on real time, that Facebook group is the place to be.
Awesome. And we'll have links to all of that stuff below this video. All right, guys, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
And thank you guys for watching KickSaga. My name is Matthew Rodella, where we interview first-time board game creators, both before and after they go to Kickstarter, to hear, their stories, the lessons they've learned, and then celebrate their success, or learn from, if they're not successful, learn from what they're going to, do better for next time. So if you are interested in hearing more of these stories, click the subscribe button, and then make sure to click that little bell icon so you get notified when I release future videos. Bye for now.